I am an American soldier.
I'm a warrior and a member of a team.
I serve the people of the United States and live the Army values.
I will always place the mission first.
I will never accept defeat.
I will never accept defeat.
I will never quit.
I will never leave a fallen comrade.
I am disciplined.
I am disciplined. Physically and mentally tough.
Trained and proficient in my warrior tasks and drills.
I always maintain my arms, my equipment, and myself.
I am an expert and I am a professional.
I stand ready to deploy, engage, and destroy the
enemies of the United States of America in close combat.
I am a guardian of freedom and the American way of life.
I am an American soldier.
I am an American soldier.
I am an American soldier.
I am Army Strong.
There's strong, and there's Army Strong. See what it takes at GoArmy.com.
Sometimes riders feel lost, unsure why a passage may not be working. It takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing into full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, offering manuscript critiques and line edits through a mentoring editorial style. We also offer assistance on generating a writer's bio for your websites. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services, visit blackwolfeditorial.com.
Hey folks, I want to introduce you to a friend of mine, Dr. Richard Harden. We are on the same mission, which is waking up America. We just have different paths. So stay tuned for some information on how you can keep up with Richard and all his work.
Visit Richard's website at raharden.com. That's the World Wide Web at RAHARDIN.com. At his website, you can see a summary of the 6 books he has written, where purchases may be made. He also has a link to 18 videos on YouTube and several blogs about Christian beliefs. If you prefer, visit Amazon.com/Kindle and type in Richard Harden to see and purchase his books.
Every day, the men and women of the United States Marine Corps stand ready to defend the American way of life. The few, the proud, the Marines.
The following message contains a special offer for listeners of this station. Are you a man over 40? Are you constantly looking for the nearest bathroom? Do you wake up multiple times a night to use the bathroom? Right now, Perfect Prostate is sending out free bottles of their groundbreaking new formula to listeners of this station. Perfect Prostate Formula was developed by medical doctor Mitchell Fleischer, and its ingredients have been clinically studied to reduce your frequent nighttime bathroom visits and promote healthy urine flow. Right now, preferred customers get their first bottle of Perfect Prostate absolutely free. There's nothing to lose. Perfect Prostate is guaranteed to reduce that constant urge to use the bathroom, especially at night, and promote healthy urine flow. Don't wait. Call now for your free bottle. Just pay shipping and processing. Dial 1-800-675-0251. That's 1-800-675-0251. Supplies are limited. One free bottle per household. Call now. Dial 1-800-675-0251. That's 1-800-675-0251.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
You're listening to the Spark Radio Network, internet radio like you've never heard before. Innovation, creativity, and imagination are all said to begin with a spark. So fasten your seatbelt and take the ride of your life and listen for the spark.
You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
My name is Jessie. I'm a United States Special Forces widow. This gives me a unique perspective on the world around us. If you're willing to listen, I'll tell you how I see it, and I won't pull any punches. This is my POV, which stands for Point of View.
Hi, and welcome to the show tonight. Welcome to Jessie's POV. I am your host tonight, Dave Brewer. I'm filling in for Jessie. Unfortunately, Jessie has got herself a case of laryngitis tonight. So she's asked me to fill in for her since we've had some major news stories going on tonight. If you haven't heard already, there's a Russian diplomat that was attacked and killed today in Ankara, Turkey. Pretty high-ranking Russian diplomat. He was the Russian diplomat to Turkey. Just to read you a little bit here from RT News. The fatal attack on Russia's ambassador to Turkey, who was killed by a gunman on Monday, is clearly a provocation aimed at undermining both Russian-Turkish relations and the settling of the Syrian crisis. Now, just so y'all are aware here, Turkey is, of course, a Middle Eastern country that shares a border with Syria. The border with Syria has been very porous during their conflict, during the Syrian civil war. Russia is, of course, backing Assad down in Syria, and so it's natural for Russia to want to have some diplomatic relations with Turkey to, persuade them one way or the other about, how they want their policy to go in Syria. Anyways, I do have some clips here of the actual shooting that took place in Turkey, and we'll go ahead and listen to that now. Now, as you can hear from that recording, that was the actual gunman. He's been identified as a 22-year-old policeman in Turkey. And he was, from what I can tell from the recording, he was shouting Allahu Akbar, which is a common enough phrase from many Muslim terrorists as they commit their acts of violence. He is reported to have also said a few other things, and pretty much accusing the Russians of killing, his people in Aleppo, Syria. Allahu Akbar, as you may or may not know, translates to Allah is great, or God is great. So we have that major news story down in Syria. Other news that we have tonight includes I still have a little bit more here. We also have a clip from the Russia, the translator for Prime Minister Putin from Russia.
We should offer to this murder is stepping up our fight against terror, and the criminals will feel the heat. The Russian investigative committee has already launched an investigation into this killing. It's been tasked with forming a working group which will have to fly to Ankara and join its Turkish colleagues in jointly investigating this murder. This is something we agreed on in my telephone conversation with the Turkish president just now. We have to know who organized the killing, who gave orders to the assassin.
So as I was saying, that is, of course, the translator for Prime Minister Putin. Been in contact, of course, with with Erdogan, the Prime Minister of Turkey, to discuss, relations as they go forward in investigating this attack on a diplomat. If you followed any bit of news in the past however many years, attacks on diplomats are not all that common. They do not happen very often. Most diplomats do have security, but their biggest source of security is that they are diplomats, and most countries do not mess with another country's diplomats because of the role that they play in negotiating and transmitting official messages from one country's government to another. Bad things start to happen when the diplomats get attacked. Things can go haywire. Of course, it's just a bad situation all the way around. I'm not sure what this will mean for the people down in Syria. I'm not sure what this will mean for the Turkish people or the Russian people. But it's going to be a pretty major, the consequences and the fallout will be very major after this attack. I do have here a clip from the State Department of Russia to play for you. Oh, sorry, this is from the U.S. State Department in regards to the attack on the Russian diplomat.
I know, or at least I hope, you've seen the statement that the Secretary just put out, but if you didn't, please allow me to reiterate what Secretary Kerry said in his statement, which is that the United States condemns the assassination today in Ankara of Russian Ambassador Andrei Karlov. Our thoughts and prayers are, of course, with his loved ones, with the Russian people, and with all the other victims who were injured in this attack and their families. We stand ready to offer any assistance that may be required to Russia and Turkey as they investigate this despicable attack, which was, as the Secretary noted, also an assault on the right of all diplomats to safely and securely advance and represent their nations around the world. On Libya.
So there you have it from the U.S. State Department in condemning the attack on the Russian diplomat in Turkey. As I said, a pretty major function in negotiating and transmitting messages between all different countries. So everybody's going to circle up and protect their own here, is what I see happening. The countries and the governments involved will protect their diplomats, probably at the very least increase security. Now, what ramifications about? Okay. It's unclear what impact the attack will have on Russian-Turkish relationship, which was already rocky to start with. As I said, Turkey has let their border with Syria become very porous. For a lot of time, there's many instances where smuggling to the Syrian rebels, and terrorist groups operating in Syria have been resupplied through Turkey. Assad, and as I said before, Russia has been backing Assad down in Syria. And so they've been fighting against all these, against the Free Syrian Army, against al-Nusra, and Al-Qaeda, and whoever else is operating and fighting Assad right now. So there's a lot of conflict that Turkey and Russia need to resolve. How they're going to resolve it, I do not know. And we'll just have to wait and see, what actions are taken. All right, moving on to other news here. In Germany, we had an attack. This attack was in the Christmas market outside of Berlin. It was conducted using a truck, a pretty large truck. Hold on, let me get that. The truck was some sort of tractor-trailer truck carrying steel beams. It was a box truck. The driver literally took the truck and drove into the crowded Christmas market, and resulting in injuries to about 50-some-odd people in that market. After the attack, they found the suspect, and I believe they have apprehended him, and they're questioning him. Found about a couple kilometers away, so he didn't get very far. There was also a dead passenger in this truck. From what I can gather, the truck was owned by a Polish company. They have contacted the owner of the truck, and the owner of the truck said that his cousin or his driver, something had to have happened to him, because he had called and talked to the driver, and the driver said, that he was going to be unloading his truck come Tuesday morning. So the owner, had contact with his driver, heard everything was okay, and then is told that, his truck was then used in this attack. My suspicion is that the driver, and well, this is a suspicion shared by the owner of the trucking company, that the driver was likely either something happened to the driver and that the truck was hijacked by whoever this person is. It is known that several terrorist groups have, implored their followers to use vehicles in attacks, much like the Bastille Day attack that occurred in France. This may very well be a terrorist attack. The German government has said that it looks like an attack, but they're not willing to call it an attack just yet. They want to do a further investigation. Of course, Daesh or ISIS is likely suspect in any terrorist attack. There's also German. Well, anyways, but the thing is, this will very likely become a difficult situation for Merkel, the German chancellor, as she's come under fire here for her policies in regards to the immigration of Middle Easterners and foreigners into Germany and the European Union. Alright, we're going to stop right here and take a quick commercial break. Alright, it's coming up right now. You have to, excuse me. Like I said, this is my first time doing a show here.
You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign. KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
You're listening to the Spark Radio Network, internet radio like you've never heard before. Innovation, creativity, and imagination are all said to begin with a spark. So fasten your seatbelt and take the ride of your life and listen for the spark.
Okay, and we're back.
God's
got a
Pure
few
Word
more
of
stories
Faith
here
with
to
Richard
go
Hardin
over
can now
with
be
y'all.
heard Monday
Thank
through
you for
Friday
listening
morning
again.
at 7
Alright, so we'll
a.m.
jump over here to
Central,
the other
8
side of the
Eastern.
world. We've been talking about stuff in the Middle East and Europe, and I'm going to jump over here real quick to North Korea. North Korea is one of these countries. I've visited the country. I've worked there for a year. I worked in South Korea, not North Korea. South Korea is a pretty nice country, and I feel a little bit of attachment to them just from having lived and worked there for a year. North Korea, as you know, it's a divided. Korea is a divided country. The Korean Peninsula should be one country, but we of course have the democratically run South Korean government, and on the other side of the 38th parallel is the North Korean government, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. Trust me, there's nothing democratic about that country. It is led by Kim Jong-un, who is the successor to Kim Jong-il. Kim Jong-un is officially 5 years into his reign of North Korea. And we have here an article from ABC outlining 5 ways that North Korea has changed under Kim Jong-un from his father's term. You may find that hard to believe that the country has actually changed, but there have been slight variations and changes made to the way things are done in North Korea. So, first off, Kim Jong-un, they say he's a lot more charismatic and gregarious. In the past few years, he'll play host Dennis Rodman. and a few other, different celebrity types. So he's a little more welcoming, a little more charismatic than his father was. His father really didn't socialize with, former basketball stars and whatnot. So we also have the nuclear situation in North Korea. North Korea has, of course, pursued nuclear weapons, and they have produced several nuclear bombs. The program, started back in Kim Il-sung's reign, and for the first 5 years, north of Kim Jong-un's reign of North Korea, he has conducted 5 nuclear tests. 3 have been under his watch, and 2, including its most powerful to date, and its first of what Pyongyang claims was an H-bomb, happened this year. So he's definitely been pushing the nuclear weapon. He's been pushing North Korea's nuclear weapon development. Like I said, they detonated what they said was an H-bomb. From all the reports I saw previous year, the H-bomb, which should have been much stronger than just a regular nuclear bomb, was still coming in at 10 to 20 kilotons. So still not a very powerful nuclear device. We're talking, it's still significant. I mean, nuclear weapons, as people say, close only counts in horseshoes, hand grenades, and nuclear warfare. So a 10 to 20 kiloton weapon is still rather dramatic, but it may not be a city killer. But even if you still take out part of a city of, say, Seoul, you take out a quarter of a city size of Seoul, that's very significant. And it is something to be feared and respected. Just the fact that they have that kind of capability. Alright. Now the difference here between Kim Jong-un and Kim Jong-il. Kim Jong-il was pushing a military-first policy. What that meant was he wanted to have a strong conventional military. So if you were conscripted into the Korean army, likely your food rations were better, your standard of living was a little bit better than everybody else. Of course, North Korea may be a communist country, and they may say that there is no societal classes in a communist country. But clearly with North Korea, want to have something better than the regular peasant. The military might be a way to get you there. And then, so there is still a class. There's still societal classes within North Korea. Now here's another big difference between Kim Jong-un and Kim Jong-il. The economy. Kim Jong-il had a very government-run economy. There was a point when they revalued their currency, and it failed to do what it was supposed to do. And likely, one of their finance ministers or somebody who put forth the plan may have come to an untimely end because of the change in policy. But they are big on setting the price. The government will set the price for all goods and services. The government would determine who owns what and under what conditions. This is a typical communist type of economy. It is very centralized. Under Kim Jong-un, things have changed. Capitalist-style markets and entrepreneurialism has been allowed to expand, invigorating the domestic economy and creating new revenue streams for the government, which profits by either taking a cut or by directly supporting such enterprises. So the communist government is now still heavily involved in the economy, still heavily involved in everybody's individual businesses, but they have now, instead of directing what what businesses may be done, they are just taking part in them. So this has led to a larger black market. This has also led to an increase in the number of taxis in the capital, an increase in coffee shops and street stalls. Also, if a farmer can produce more crops, he gets a reward. So this has created bigger harvests, which is good for the country because, North Korea has at times been under famine. In years gone by, thousands, if not millions, of North Korean civilians have perished, died, simply because of the lack of food. They've literally starved to death. Or they'll die from other, related diseases to not having good nutrition. And in fact, I think it was just a year ago that Kim Jong-un warned his country that they would be facing hard times. This was due in part to some of the food shipments that North Korea had been getting for a number of years from, I believe it was the UN or somebody like that. They were getting diverted down to the Middle East. So that kind of food away, and Kim Jong-un is wondering how he's going to feed his people. Allowing a capitalist-style marketplace to come about and be created may help him solve some of that issues. Okay, the last big change here is entertainment. Kim Jong-un has on several occasions vowed to make North Korea a more civilized nation. His signature development projects include an equestrian center and sprawling water park in Pyongyang and a luxury ski resort near the port city of Wonsan on the East Coast. Try to make things look a little nicer to everybody else outside of North Korea. It is, I assure you, it's still a very communist dictatorship, and things progress as much as they can under a communist dictator. In other words, things will stay the same, but their entertainment options have at least increased. There's even a report earlier here that North Korea was hosting an Oktoberfest celebration in Pyongyang. I bring that up because if you haven't guessed by my name, Dave Brewer, brewing beer is a hobby of mine. I'd also pulled up reviews on the beer coming out of North Korea, and it's not been very good. Depending on how soon you get the beer out of North Korea, it could be anywhere from mediocre to bad. Some of the beer has been reportedly gotten stale, but I'm sure at his Oktoberfest celebration here a month and a half ago, the beer was probably at least fresh. Now, was there a whole lot of beer there, or a lot of variation? That remains to be determined. And the celebration was, that I saw, limited to Pyongyang. And, one little area. It didn't have the light and festivity that revolves around the German Oktoberfest. Alright, now we're going to stop here and take another commercial break while we pay some bills.
In these uncertain economic times, you've got to do whatever you can to save money. One of our biggest expenses can be our cars, especially when unexpected repair bills hit. Not anymore. If you own a vehicle with less than 130,000 miles, is less than 12 years old, has a warranty about to expire, or even no warranty at all, you could stop paying for car repairs. Roadside assistance, towing, and rental coverage are all included. Don't wait for the next repair. Make one free call right now to see if you qualify. If your vehicle vehicle is less than 12 years old, has less than 130,000 miles, even if it's out of warranty, paying for car repairs can become a thing of the past. Call us right now and get your car protected before your next repair bill hits. Get protection and no more repair bills. Call 800-696-1030. Again, 800-696-1030. That's 800-696-1030. 800-696-1030.
All writers are prone to becoming so attached to our characters and stories that we struggle to see why a passage may not be working. It takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing to full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, shaping stories into masterpieces that can stand the test of time. Editing services are provided for all genres and all age categories. Services range from the critique of the short story through to line edits on full-length novels. We also offer assistance on generating writers' bios for your websites. We won't abandon you to the masses. We want to celebrate with you in your successes. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services and prices, visit us at blackwolfeditorial.com.
I've owned my company for 14 years now, and I can tell you that payroll is a 4-letter word. I hate doing it. It eats up hours I don't have, and it costs me money I could be saving. But my accountant's too expensive, and I'm not sure who to call, but I know I need help.
We're Paychex, and we take all the hassles out of small business payroll. We save you time and money. It's easy. Call, fax, or give us your payroll information securely online, and we take care of the rest. We calculate the correct taxes, manage payments and direct deposits. We even send out your checks. Payroll doesn't need to be a 4-letter word anymore. We're so sure that we can save you time and money that we'll give you a month's payroll free. Just for calling 877-757-2782. Get 1 month's payroll for free. Call Paychex right now. 877-757-2782. That's 877-757-2782.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
Alright, and we're back. So, we're just talking about North Korea and the changes that Kim Jong-un has. Now I'm going to take you down further south to China. China and the disputed South China Sea. Recently, China, they hijacked, or they captured a U.S. sub. And mind you, this is not a very large sub. This is actually more along the lines of a drone, underwater drone, seized by China in international waters. This drone is pretty much a very glorified scientific instrument. It's used to take measurements of salinity in the ocean, as well as temperature and whatnot. And it's owned in part by the U.S. Navy. The U.S. Navy, of course, does large amounts of research to everything relating to the ocean. That is, of course, their home. So, they're going to research it. But the thing is, China, they took the drone in international waters. They, of course, claim that it was in their territorial waters. I'm looking at a map here of the South China Sea, where Hong Kong is in relation to where the incident happened. And really, we're talking about the incident happening more closer to off the coast of the Philippines. That'd be the western coast of the Philippines, would be the closest country where the incident happened. And the Philippines' territorial waters don't even extend out that far. Not that far west. Now, further south of where the incident happened by several hundred miles, it's hard to... About 200, 300 miles south are the Spratly Islands. These islands have been built on atolls by China. Literally, there was not an island there in the middle of the South China Sea. There was a basis for trying to go in and cement over these little pieces of rock and make something that they could put people on and house them, and they've also militarized them. All of this is not in accordance with international law. In fact, the international courts have ruled that these islands are illegal. However, China is using them to say that the South China Sea is theirs. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm just looking at this map here. Well, the South China Sea, pretty large area. You're talking 600-800 miles across. It's hard to tell from this map. But on one side, you have the country of Vietnam on the western side. North, and then if you go north of Vietnam, you run into the island of Hainan in China and Hong Kong. Then if you head east following the coast of China, you hit Taiwan. Then you head back down south from Taiwan, you run right into the Philippines. So you can see why the South China Sea would be disputed. The waters, simply because 12 miles off the coast of any country is considered territorial waters. And like I said, the South China Sea is hundreds of miles across. It leaves a lot of room for international waters. China, of course, says that this probe or this drone was blocking international transit. I've seen the size of this drone. I find that hard to believe. President-elect Donald Trump has even entered the fray Saturday morning, accusing China on Twitter of acting improperly. And to quote him, China steals United States Navy research drone in international waters, rips it out of water, and takes it to China in an unprecedented act. If you follow what Trump says, what President Trump says, President-elect Trump, that's pretty tame for him. He's a little more over the top. But that's pretty much what has happened. So, China and the U.S. are arranging a handoff and transfer of the drone back to the U.S. The specifics of when and where are still being negotiated, but very soon they should have it back. Now, how they're making this deal work is anytime that one country steals something from another country or takes another country's personnel or people hostage, usually a price to be paid. I'm not sure yet what price the U.S. is going to have to pay to get this back. This is just a underwater, unmanned vehicle, and it's completely unclassified. So the U.S. wasn't out any classified or secret technology. We weren't missing personnel. We were just missing a piece of scientific equipment that China appropriated from us. Essentially, China did it just to push their claims and push their sovereignty of the South China Sea, which, like I said before, has not been legal by any international courts or any other countries. So it's just China, pretty much tossing their weight around. Alright, we're going to move back over here to Europe, to Switzerland. There was report here of from the Swiss police of a shooting at a mosque. Bring up shootings at a mosque simply because mosque is is a Muslim holy center, much like a Christian church. And given all the Muslim terrorism running around, it's good to keep track of these things. This one may or may not have anything to do with terrorists. Right now, authorities are not considering the attack as terrorism. To give you a snapshot of what happened, a masked gunman went into the mosque and shot 3 people. The injured were hospitalized and were aged 30, 35, and 56 years old. The nationalities have not been specified. This mosque, however, is frequented by Somali immigrants. So it's very much a Somali immigrant neighborhood. At the scene, and this is a quote here from the Chicago Tribune, at the scene, Abukov Abshiro, a 30-year-old Somali man who works at a Zurich car dealership, said his friend was among the injured. He recalled how they had been celebrating a religious occasion at the center the night before. "I am under shock," he said. "We've had great times here. The atmosphere was always friendly and happy at the center. I'm very, very sad this happened. We never had problems here before. We spend the weekend here with our children in peace." Now, from my perspective, when I've visited other countries, places where I've not been in familiar territory or surrounded by people that I could even expect to hold a conversation with just because I don't know the language. Usually the sign of families and kids is a warm and welcoming one to me. Because that foreign country, my senses are always on high alert. That's because I don't know the people, and I'm worried about something happening. It may not be directed against me. It may just be something. I feel just a lot safer here in the U.S. And so, when I've gone to other places before, I've seen families and kids, gathering, if it's at a park, if it's for Friday night supper. Oh, there was this one time in a Middle Eastern country. I was walking through a park, and it was that time of the week where gathered at the park, and you'd see them, picnicking. And the adults would be over in one section, just sitting on lawn chairs and talking and eating, while the kids were out there with a ball or a soccer ball, kicking the ball around. And I was walking through that park, and I was like, well, I feel safe here. So when this Somali man says that, he spends a weekend there with his family and kids, it tells me it's a pretty safe place. And so for an attack to have happened, I can understand why the Swiss may not be willing to call it terrorism, or why they may think that might be motivated otherwise. But it still may wind up being something. As I said, with anything related to Muslims and whatnot in other countries right now, just given the state of affairs with all the different terrorist organizations around, the majority of whom are Muslims, it makes me wonder what else is going on. Now, switching gears over to Iran, our wonderful country of Iran. I say wonderful rather sarcastically. Iran's they've got some good people, but their government is not the best. And I'm sure y'all know that the U.S. here struck a deal with Iran to limit their production of nuclear technology and nuclear weapons. So, this article I've got here in front of me, the UN has warned Iran about enrichment cap. This is from Vienna. The head of the UN nuclear agency said Monday that Iran is complying with obligations limiting uranium enrichment, but 2 diplomats say the agency has warned Tehran that unless it slows the process, it could soon bust through its cap on material that could be used to make a bomb. So what they're saying is that Iran is still got its reactors going, still producing a lot of nuclear material, and if they don't stop here real soon, they're going to produce more than they're allowed. That deal has... Well, I'm not sure what's in the deal, because there's a lot of secret deals that went on with it. And, you know, it's only good for 10 years. And there's not a whole lot of oversight with that deal. Essentially, the Iran nuclear deal, it's not worth the paper it's written on. Due to all these side deals and lack of oversight. And, you know, it only lasts for 10 years. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if I'll read the statement here from the International Atomic Energy Agency. They stress the vital importance of full implementation by Iran of its nuclear-related commitments. Mono asked whether he had concerns about Iran's stockpile of enriched uranium. He told reporters that Tehran is within the limits for now. While Iran has generally kept to its obligations since the deal was implemented in January, it has twice exceeded the limit on stockpiles of heavy water, which cools reactors that produce large amounts of plutonium. Heavy water is just a variation on water that gets used in nuclear reactors all the time. If they're producing large amounts of heavy water, and that's used to cool the reactors, then you know that they're running those reactors. If they're running those reactors at high speed, well, without the oversight and investigators going in, you really won't be able to tell whether or not they've produced more or less than what they're supposed to have. Also, the reactors that are being run, they produce plutonium. Plutonium is, for nuclear weapons, you need either uranium or plutonium. And plutonium gets used in a lot of bombs. That's really what it's intended for. It doesn't really occur naturally all that much. In fact, just over here shaking your head, no, it does not. So the only use that they have for plutonium is to put it into a bomb. So I guarantee you, if Iran doesn't already have a nuclear bomb, they're still working on getting a nuclear bomb. So what that means for the deal with the US, it means that the foxes have been left to guard the hen house. The Iranians are doing what the Iranians please with their nuclear weapons program. Sure, they may have stopped it here or there just for appearance's sake, but I guarantee you, somewhere in that country, before the 10 years is up, we'll have a working nuclear warhead. A dozen of them. Also in Iran, lifting of sanctions by the US and other countries has meant that they are more open to trade. If you're following the press, there's a large amount of money that Iran has now been able to get their hands on. Part of this was money that they felt was owed to them since before the revolution, and that the U.S. has frozen accounts that Iran had with us not long after the revolution. In part because they took our people hostage back in 1979. We did eventually get them back after stuff. We'll come back to the story here in just a little bit. We're going to stop here and take another commercial break.
Individuals and businesses with tax problems, listen carefully. Do you feel like you're losing control over your finances? If you owe over $10,000 in back taxes or have unfiled tax returns, we can help you take back control. The IRS is the largest and most aggressive collection agency in the world, and they can seize your bank account, garnish your paycheck, close your business, and file criminal charges. Take control of your tax problems now by calling the experts at Tax Mediation Services and take advantage of the Fresh Start program and new laws that may allow us to negotiate a settlement for the lowest amount possible. Our team of tax attorneys and enrolled agents can stop collections and get you protected so you can take control of your financial future. Tax Mediation Services is accredited by the Better Business Bureau. Call now for a free case review and a price protection guaranteed quote.
Call Tax Mediation Services now at 800-610-9050. That's 800-610-9050. 800-610-9050.
And we're back. Okay, so here we are talking about Iran and some of the sanctions, the lifting of sanctions has had on their economy. Like I said, back in 1979, Americans were taken hostage in Iran by the new Iranian government. Essentially, they were held hostage for about 444 days. A long time. There was, when the U.S. even sent special forces troops over there to try and get them in a failed attempt to rescue the hostages. It wasn't until Ronald Reagan took office after Jimmy Carter that the hostages were finally freed. But anyways, we're talking about the current day here and the sanctions that have been lifted because of this nuclear deal that signed with the U.S. Freed up a lot of money for Iran. And in fact, when they recently released several American citizens here from Iran, there was a ransom paid by the U.S. government. The U.S. government will call it something else and say it was something else. But until the cash was literally in the hands of the Iranians, those American hostages in Iran were not going to be freed. But Iran is now doing business with Airbus. Iran, like any other large country, they've got planes flying around, and one article here off of money.cnn.com says it ditches the Airbus A380 Super Jumbo. What's really going on here is that Iranians decided that they're not going to get the twin-deck A380 aircraft from Airbus. What they are doing is they still have a multi-billion-dollar deal on the table with Airbus to acquire 100 planes. This is part of a plan to renew the fleet of airplanes that Iran has. All the sanctions have been in place for the 80s. Trying to get new planes, new equipment into Iran has been very difficult to do without the approval of your government to say, hey, may conduct trade with Iran. Getting new parts for planes and repair parts and new aviation technology was just a non-starter. Airbus also, although is not the only ones doing business in Iran. Iran finalized a similar deal with Boeing earlier this month. Boeing agreed to sell 80 airplanes to Iran Air, despite criticism from many U.S. lawmakers, including President-elect Donald Trump. Now, President-elect Donald Trump is taking somewhat of a very pro-business stance here in the U.S. So you might say, well, why wouldn't he be for this deal? Well, this is Iran we're talking about here. Just because we've lifted sanctions doesn't make them our friends. But you couldn't very well let Boeing not sell planes to Iran when their biggest competitor in the world market for airliners, that would be Airbus, and Airbus is based in France, is already selling 100 planes to Iran. So you're kind of forced to if you're going to let one company do it, you have to be able to let the other competitor do it. So that's where we stand. Iran's getting a lot out of this nuclear deal. They get their sanctions lifted. They get a lot of money. So they'll be doing a lot of trade because Iran they've got natural resources. And they've got a large population. And the population actually pretty well educated, might be brainwashed in regards to politics and government and how things are run, but they're smart people. It's fitting for two of the world's most sanctioned countries to trade with each other. That would be, of course, be North Korea and Iran. Those two countries have been conducting business ever since the Iranian Revolution. It's also been reported that they not just trading in, say, commercial goods, but trading in military equipment or missile technology or nuclear technology has gone on between the two countries. This is something that's been documented for a number of years. I've even seen the same, even a ship, it's a North Korean ship that has made regular trips to Iran. I've seen it mentioned at least twice in different news articles. So the North Korean and Iranian relationship, it's a very good relationship. Of course, to harken back to the days of George W. Bush when he was in office, he called Iraq, Iran, and North Korea, they were the three people involved in the axis of evil. So I believe a lot of that activity between Iran and North Korea is still occurring. Not so much between Iraq and North Korea or Iraq and Iran, but you never know what's going on with all the political upheaval in the Middle East. Okay, we also have, now to go back over to Aleppo. Of course, you mentioned Aleppo here earlier. There's been a lot of fighting in Aleppo here recently. Assad, of course, has been in the middle of a civil war in Syria. And the current front of this civil war seems to be Aleppo. Recently, I won't say we've been, but they have been evacuating civilians out of Aleppo. And unfortunately, a lot of those buses going out of Aleppo have been attacked. I've got a clip here to play for you.
What, if anything, you all are seeing in terms of the evacuations out of Aleppo? Are you seeing any people moving out of Aleppo at all?
I watched the Aleppo on TV. It's horrible, like most of you. And I read intelligence, so I get special access to intelligence about Aleppo, but Aleppo is not in our charter here. So I'm blessed, although it's a curse. The complicator is we have a civil war right next to our war, even overlapping our war here against ISIL or Daesh. But I'm not responsible for what's going on for the coalition in Aleppo. The coalition's not doing that, so I can't really comment on the withdrawal or the end is near or any of that. You probably know about as much about it as I do.
So there you have it from Lieutenant General Townsend. General makes him a 3-star general, so pretty high up the military food chain. So it's not coalition forces moving the civilians out of Aleppo. Yeah, the coalition has not had anything to do with Aleppo in that regards, as you heard him say. What is important to note here is that it's not just the civilians leaving Aleppo, it's also the militants, the ones who are fighting against Assad. From what I've seen also in the Associated Press, the militants have been moving further north to a city that's along the Turkish border. There's a region up there where they've got about 50,000 militant fighters known to be residing up there. And it's all different groups of fighters. And they're kind of surprised that there hasn't been more infighting between all these different terrorist organizations and militant groups. But they may have just realized, whatever town this is along the border, that's going to be the last holdout for the militants. Because at some point I expect Assad to turn his attention that way, get all of his enemies in one place if he can. But there's a silver lining here to this evacuation. A 7-year-old girl who has been tweeting about life amid the devastation of eastern Aleppo has been safely evacuated from the city. There's even a picture of her. She is smiling, and it looks like her father or one of her relatives is holding her up. And this is a 7-year-old girl. Her name is Bana Alabed. And she's essentially, during this whole conflict and everything that's been going on in Aleppo, she's been tweeting about it and delivering reports of day-to-day life in Aleppo. Oh, yeah, she's been tweeting with mom's help. That's what Jessie's writing to me here. So anyways, on that note, I'll go ahead and close out this broadcast. Be safe, be well, and we're out of here.
You can lay down if you want to